Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. Welcome to everybody. We have a whole group of folks here on Zoom, as well as a large amount of people watching on Facebook Live from across the world today to hear about our work in Southeast Asia. We hope you've enjoyed the beautiful music. My colleagues have actually put some background music about that song into the chat, so please do feel free to take a look at that. We see some familiar faces and some new faces here as well. So for those of you that I haven't had the opportunity to meet, my name is Jeremy Haldeman, and I'm the Director of Government Affairs and Advocacy at Alight. I often describe my job as really cool because I get to connect doers, thinkers, legislators, and policymakers with our amazing staff, volunteers, and customers around the world. So we like to start things off in a really kind of personal, casual, interactive setting here. So for those of you who can, we do invite you to turn on your video, jump off of mute, and say hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Morning.
Awesome. Thank you for doing that. It makes the virtual world much more interesting.
Hello.
Oh, hello. So a few housekeeping items as we start off today. Now that we have come off of mute, we do ask you to go back onto mute so that we can hear our speakers today. There will be a Q&A time at the end, but this is casual and interactive, so grab your coffee or tea and feel free to put questions into the chat and we'll answer them in real time as well as at the end. We do want to give a special thanks to and welcome to all of Alight's team joining us from Southeast Asia, where, depending on the specific location, it's somewhere between 8:30 and 10 p.m. So we're thrilled to have you and be hearing from you today and all the amazing work that the team is doing. We are really conscientious, of course, of everything that's going on in the world right now. And as we come together today to learn about the truly amazing and change-making work of Alight's Southeast Asia team, we are really mindful of the recent and ongoing events of hate and violence against the Southeast Asia community across the globe. At Alight, we are servants to the principle that to be human is to be wondrous. And we believe that everyone everywhere deserves respect, dignity, and protection from discrimination and harm. And we do stand in solidarity with our Asian American friends and neighbors and in support of our Southeast Asian colleagues doing vital work and service to all of humanity. And because we are humanitarians, we do believe that there is a simple human justice in the chance to build a life. So when we find people displaced from their home, we of course help them with their basic needs, but that's living, it is not a life. A life is one that is filled with joy, dignity, connection, and purpose. And that's what we aim to build. And that's what you're going to hear about this morning. Our Workshare series is a chance to give you all an inside look at the work that we are doing to co-design new solutions with displaced and marginalized people around the world to help them build full and fulfilling lives. We do want to give a special shout out to a sponsor of today's section, Dr. John McGurl. Dr. McGurl couldn't be with us this morning. He's actually seeing patients right now as we speak. But he has a particularly strong connection to Alight's work in Southeast Asia, having served as a medical volunteer back in the 1980s. Dr. McGurl, we thank you for your service and thank you for challenging each of us today to do good and be here just by listening. Dr. McGurl, with his great generosity, is going to give $20 for each and every person Zooming with us today. So you all are doing good just by logging on, so thank you. What we're going to be hearing about today is Alight's longest running program. Alight has actually been in Thailand since 1978. It's actually where our organization was founded, then called the American Refugee Committee. And we trace our values like being human-centered all the way to our response in refugee camps on the Thai-Cambodian border, co-designing successful TB treatment methods alongside the community. This founding work provided the foundation for the worldwide humanitarian organization that Alight has become. And our team in Southeast Asia is such an important and critical part of that story. Today, over 40 years later, the team continues to fight infectious diseases like tuberculosis, and they'll soon be sharing with us some of their work fighting on malaria across 5 countries in Southeast Asia. By way of background, in 2019, 229 million people were infected with malaria and 409,000 people lost their lives to this disease. The numbers represent a terrible, completely preventable loss of life, but they also represent progress. Global malaria mortality has actually, in fact, decreased by 60% since 2000. And that is a huge thanks in part to the efforts of the Alight team we're going to hear from this morning. So enough from me. I'm going to give a quick introduction of our speakers and then turn it over to the real experts and the real interesting people here today. So first, Fifi Sabang is Alight's regional director for Asia. She's led the Southeast Asia team for the last 4 years, before which she was Alight's country director in South Sudan. Rachel Sismar is our senior program coordinator for the Southeast Asia program. Along with Fifi, Rachel manages all programming across the team's 5 countries of operation. And a quick shout out to Rachel's service. She has been with Alight for now 15 years. So thank you for everything that you've done. And lastly, but not least, is Shreya Traya. He manages Alight's civil society program, coordinating the malaria fighting efforts of NGOs, governments, and other partners across Cambodia, Vietnam, and Laos. And one thing that we've done on our Workshare series, for those of you who know, who've been joining us, we've been really, really privileged to be joined today, through this series by a series of really amazing reporters. And we're really fortunate today to have Gia Vang, who's going to moderate our discussion. Gia is a sunrise anchor for NBC Care 11 News in the Twin Cities. She is the daughter of refugees and is the only Hmong anchor in the country in a major news market. We also have to give a special shout out to Gia since she has been awake since about 2 a.m. this morning. So Gia, we're really glad to have you joining us for your second Alight event. As I understand it, you were a featured storyteller at an Alight Women's Day gathering last year. Gia, over to you.
Jeremy, thank you so much for that introduction. And you're right, I was a part of that event last year. That was amazing. But I've also, visited Alight because I just wanted to see what it was about previous to that event. But Alight does amazing work, and I'm so glad to see everyone's faces here today. Good morning to some of you. Good evening to some of you. Nyajong to everyone around the globe. I'm so excited to talk to Shri and Rachel and Fifi about themselves, but also learn so much more about their efforts to eliminate malaria in Southeast Asia. So I'm going to start with Shri, and I want to ask Shri, can you tell us something you love most about Rachel and just something that people might be surprised to hear about Rachel?
Thank you so much, Zia. I'm working with Rachel, so I know having very caring and good, kind boss is always very good thing, but she's also a very good team leader. So that's the most loving part of her. And something maybe many of you are not aware of, Rachel likes durian fruit. And she tried to grow up durian plant and it didn't work somehow. And she ended up growing jackfruit. Over to you.
Wow, I don't even know what that is. I'm gonna have to get Rachel to send me some details about that after this. But Rachel, okay, so Shri talked a little bit about you. Can you tell us something you most appreciate about Shri and then something most people don't know about him?
Thank you, Gia. Yeah, I will show you later what's the durian and the jackfruit look like. But yeah, for Shri, I've been working with Shri since then with Malaria program prior to his joining with ARC Alight. And I truly admire Shri's patience and his diplomacy, especially in dealing with the 50 plus organization across the Greater Mekong sub-region. It's not an easy task, especially that this organization has different demands and different, kind of attention that they need. So Shri is also very crucial, and he's really instrumental in positioning ourselves in the region because of his current project now, the CSO platform. And for you who haven't known, but Shri is he shared something about his experience of being a TB survivor. He's been infected with TB for like twice. And because of this, he is really playing his role now as an advocate through his personal testimony. And, that's what he's working for TB and malaria in the region. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel, and thank you for your service too with Alight for so long now. And Shri, that's incredible. So you are really passionate about something that you've experienced yourself. Thank you. Okay, so before about the team and what they're doing and their amazing work. We want to let you all see for yourself. So we have a little video that we put together. So go ahead and play the video, please. Wow, I'm just so impressed by the any means necessary efforts that the teams are doing in getting to some of these remote communities. So that's just incredible. Okay, so now for the questions, I want to bring Fifi in now. So Fifi, as Jeremy had mentioned at the top of this, Alight back then was the American refugee when it began in Thailand in 1978. So you're still there today, and I just imagine a lot has changed, right, since you've been there. So can you take us back and walk us through all that Alight has done in that time, and then also the different people that you've helped and the changing work that's happening now, Fifi?
Yeah, well, thanks, Gia. So I guess in 1978, but then we started in late 1979. So the first program opened at the Cambodia site, so Thai border with Cambodia. So not sure everybody familiar with the name of the refugee camps called Khao I Dang. So that's the first one. So it's located in the Thailand side, but then bordering with the Cambodia. So at the very beginning, we provided medical and public health services. So beside that camp, we also work in other 4 camps in the Thailand side at the Cambodia border. So some of you might be familiar with the names of Nong Samet, Panat Nikom, Ban Finai, and Site 2. So that is like we began since 1979. And then it continues until 1992, which is 13 years later. So then these camps in the Thailand side were closed. And so then we moved to the Cambodia side. So instead of doing 5 camps in the Thailand side, we moved to the two camps in the Cambodia side. But at the same year in 1992, we also expand our work to the Burma side, to the Myanmar side. So the Cambodia is on the right-hand side of the Thailand, and then Myanmar is on the left-hand side of the Thailand. So in that Thailand-Myanmar border, we have about 9 camps. So as you can see, even though we are closing the Cambodia border side, we open in the Myanmar side. So the 9 camps, and the 2 camps in the Cambodia, we continue doing that for 7 years. So until 1999, unfortunately, it was closed. So the 2 camps were closed. However, we maintain our work in the Thai-Burma border, the Thai-Myanmar border of the 9 camps. So we don't do all in the 9 camps. It all depends on the funding that we receive. So sometimes we do 3, 4, 5 camps at the same time, but we work in all those 9 camps in the Thai-Myanmar border, providing the medical and public health services. So that is continuously, and then when we close in Cambodia, in 1999, we maintain the Thai-Burma border camps in the 9 sites. And unfortunately, in 2004, we got hit the tsunami. Some of you might be remember that we kept that in the Boxing Day on the December 26th. So it hits the Thailand, also Indonesia, also Sri Lanka and Bangladesh. But for us having it here in Thailand side, so we were able to respond immediately. So we were able to deliver some medical supplies to the hospitals and also some provided trauma support to the survivors in the North Phuket area. And at the same time also we began our fish boat project. So we were able to distribute about 500 boats to the fishermen in 14 affected Thai villages. These are actually supported by the former presidents of Bill Clinton and George Bush. So that is 2004. And then at the same year of 2004, prior to the tsunami, we received the USAID grants on the prevention and control of infectious disease along the Thai-Burma border. So this is actually the birth of the malaria program for us here in the region. So from that year in 2004, we are actually covering all the vulnerable categories. So we cover the refugee campsites. We also cover at the same time, we also providing prevention and control of malaria for the Burmese migrant workers who actually commute daily along the Thai-Burma border. So if you see my background now, right now that side is actually Myanmar side, and then the picture was taken in the Thailand side. So that's how easy the migrant workers commute daily. So that's what we do. So that's the start of the malaria in the region in 2004. As we continue, 9 years later in 2013, we opened our Myanmar office in Myanmar, Burma. There we are working with the Myanmar government and also ethnic health organization. For some of you who are not familiar about the Myanmar structure, so we have regions and also states, so 7 states and 7 regions. So the region is under control of the ethnic group, while the states are controlled by the government. So we are actually working in both sides. So we're both working with the government, and also we are working with the ethnic health organizations. So the idea was actually we are co-creating a 5-year plan, so intended to stop the spread of the drug-resistant malaria in the country. So that's what we do in 2013 for malaria. So we're expanding from Thailand to Myanmar. And then in 2017, back to Thailand. Unfortunately, we are closing our refugee program. However, we continue maintaining our malaria program. So that's in 2017 as we progress. In 2018, we also included TB in our malaria program. And then we are having 3 into our team when we are expanding the working of the malaria towards the 5 countries. So besides Thailand, Myanmar, we are expanding to the other 3 countries, which you all seen in the video. It's called the GMS regions, so Greater Mekong sub-regions, which includes Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam. In there, we don't implement directly, but we work through our partners. So to sum up, so today, currently, we do TB, HIV, and malaria in Thailand, while in Myanmar, we do TB and malaria. And for Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam, we are focusing only on malaria with our partners in the respective countries. So I hope that's enough information, Gia, and also to refresh everybody's memory on Thailand.
Yeah. Fifi, thank you for summarizing 40 plus years of work that you all have been doing there in that part of the world. That's just amazing. I know that all the little things that happen to make a really big difference to this whole thing. So I appreciate you summarizing for us, Fifi. Rachel, I want to get to you. So I understand that Southeast Asia team has been doing the malaria work since 2005 when you joined, and you are particularly passionate about it. Otherwise, you wouldn't stick around, right?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, building up what Fifi said, it's actually started in June of 2004 as part of the grant under USAID's Prevention and Control of Infectious Diseases along the Thai-Myanmar border. So I came in November 2005, and which is actually the second year of the project. And I was informed right there and there that there's no assurance of continuity and it will end up 2006. So by then I was actually responsible for the TB program. And among those infectious diseases, we have malaria and TB and others. So I basically handled the TB program. And actually this is really my something that I'm passionate about, because it's TB who moved me out of my clinical work. So it leads me to where I am now with Alight. So yeah, so without that kind of thinking, that without any assurance of continuity, but going to the field and seeing those needs, the demands of our services from the vulnerable population. So we're thinking of why expanding all these opportunities and going, finding whatever we can partner for. So we have an established relationship in the country. So with that, we were introduced to somewhat a prominent INGO in the country. And it so happened that I was also connected with that NGO. So we were invited to have and to submit this 5-year proposal for TB under the Global Fund grant. So fortunately, we were able to get it. And the following year, in 2007, we were also invited for the malaria, still under the Global Fund. And it's also a 5-year grant. So from then on, it started to where we are now, continuously. And for the record, Alight, sorry for my mentioning ARC all the time, but Alight actually received 2 rounds of grants, a 5-year and a 3-year, and the one current now, respectively for TB, and 5 rounds of malaria in Thailand, and 3 rounds of malaria grant as well in Myanmar. So that kind of long time receiving the grants under Global Fund also paved some donors to fund us with other sources. And challenges and issues are ever present, and sometimes you try to be frustrated, and sometimes you don't want to continue all this, but if you see the progress and the development that you witness all throughout the years, it makes you to do more, especially when you see the local communities that we serve, the patients, especially the patients that we often see like every day, giving them some kind of a treatment. And also the partners who are at first very hesitant and distrustful, because we are doing activities, we are doing projects for migrants, which some of them are documented and undocumented. And also seeing the dedicated volunteers and staffs, it's really drives you to do more. So now having this day by day, you can see the evident transformational development in each one, including yourself, and witnessing all these phases of growth. It's like this is your baby, and you have been seeing this now at this time around 15 years. So it makes you proud, and it makes you inspired to do more.
Well, I thank you for that answer, because it's very honest. And, like you mentioned, this kind of work doesn't come without challenges. So I just appreciate your energy and passion for sticking around and helping to eliminate malaria there, and some of the other things that you mentioned, TB. So let's go to Fifi now, because Fifi, I understand that the goal has been set to eliminate malaria in Thailand by 2023, in Myanmar by 2025. So I guess we are saying eliminate malaria, but I never thought that you can do that. And that's a possibility, yes?
Yes, to sum up the answer, yes, of course. But overall, malaria elimination goal is by 2030. So it means 9 years from now. And then setting in Thailand is in 2023, which is 2 years. And Myanmar will be 4 years later in 2025. So what I would say is Thailand can do this if Myanmar, as the neighboring country, able to do so, and also related to other countries, which is in the 5JMS countries, Thailand, Myanmar, Cambodia, Laos, and Vietnam. So we actually can do this. I know it sounds so ambitious, but of course, why not? The progress that myself has witnessed since I'm in this region 2017 has been extremely encouraging. And if we continue our campaign, if we continue our advocacy, which is so far proven effective, along with the inter-country coordination, which Alight as the lead organization is currently doing, and putting these eliminations as our common agenda, then it is absolutely possible we could eliminate malaria and GF. So that's my answer.
Okay, I'm gonna just quote you and say, of course, why not? So Shri, let's bring you into this conversation. Particularly important that Southeast Asia specifically achieve the goal of eliminating malaria. So will you tell us why that is?
That's just building on to what Fifi had just said. This region is significantly progressing in malaria elimination. Just a few years back, countries were struggling, and if you see the numbers now, it's going down. So, but it's still, there is large communities are still staying in remote and difficult area with very minimum health services, where people are still not able to get all the necessary services. And countries are, like I said, we are on track. So the region has lots of dynamic of this population movement Rachel has highlighted. So I think to address those people's need and then get into success, as PP has just highlighted, the elimination goal of the country has said is important for us to eliminate malaria, and it's possible.
Thank you, Shri. Rachel, can you tell us about the communities that Alight is working with in Thailand and Myanmar? And are there particular groups that you all are focused on, or what special steps do you need to take to reach them?
Yeah, to consider the ecology of the Victor, the mosquito, malaria in Southeast Asia is a problem, especially in the forested area, and therefore mostly in the border areas in this region. So in this context, the population risk are the people living in or in close to the forest or local the populations, often like the ethnic minorities and the mobile and migrant population. In Thailand, we are working with economic migrants who are passing, as Phoebe mentioned, on a daily basis along the Thailand-Myanmar border. And these are the hard to reach populations that might not be covered by the national malaria programs due to their mobility patterns and the remoteness of their location, or probably because of the illegal aspects of their activity. And these mobile migrant populations are often hard to reach with the current malaria tools and intervention. In Myanmar as well, we are working with local ethnic minority communities under the non-government controlled areas, and also in those rural communities where in the southeast of Myanmar, the Kayin Monch, and also particularly the Shan area. And also we are working with the community and with the rest of non-governmental organizations, like I've mentioned, 50 of those. And in order for us to really reach out to this community, we need to know the mobility patterns. And we've been mentioning about this one over and over, because if you can see all these mobility patterns across the 5 countries, it's so easy for them to just cross anytime with all these natural border crossing points. And also we have to build trust with the community, especially with those mobile and migrant populations who are mostly undocumented. And also having someone in the team who speaks their own language and understand the culture and sensitivity in a way that it will gain some kind of trust and confidence to open up to some of these issues that they are facing. And in order to reach all these communities, you've seen in the video, but through by boat. And also there are times that you have really to cross, like, rivers, rocky mountains, just to reach to this really underserved communities. And that's what our volunteers have been doing almost every day. And there are also some parts in Thailand where there are areas that experience around 7 or 9 months of rain or flooded areas. and adding to more difficulty to reaching out these beneficiaries.
Thank you, Rachel. Hey, let's go back to Shri really quickly because we also want to talk about there's drug resistance that's happening. Where is it coming from and how has it happened? And link that to what Rachel is talking about.
Well, this reason has shown long ago the drug resistance to most recently available drug. So this parasite, which is called falciparum malaria, which is killer type of malaria. And along Cambodia-Thai border in 2008, it was identified. And now it is spread to all the border with this GMS neighboring country. So, this deadliest parasite now showing resistance and is spreading along the region. And we are trying our common effort to block this resistance spread to India, where still large number of malaria is being reported, and then to Africa, which the largest part of the region is still suffering from the malaria. And in Africa region, there is different challenges, and many pregnant women and children are dying of malaria. So that's one story of the drug resistance. And then, if you see, going back to your previous question, why we need to eliminate malaria, it costs several $million in life if this drug resistance goes to the Africa. So to save those people and that amount of future investment in a worst case scenario, we need to eliminate from our region. And these malaria-free countries have 5 times greater economic growth than countries with malaria, and 10% decrease in malaria has been associated with 3% GDP rise. So we can unlock economic growth through malaria elimination, and it's important for our region. And then, as I said, this drug resistance spread now is still within the control, but it's challenging now. And the reason our project within the civil society platform, we have been quite actively engaging in advocacy, because we wanted to get this service to very remote and hard to reach area where a civil society organization is providing services. And people often repeat in lots of our discussions saying, where road ends, malaria starts. So that's the situation here.
Well, thank you for giving us some of those numbers too, because that helps give some measurement of why this is so important, Shri. Okay, Rachel, I know that your teams are working in Thailand and Myanmar. So who are they and what does their work every day trying to eliminate malaria look like?
So in both Thailand and Myanmar, we are working with a cadre of volunteers, which they are mostly coming from the local and trusted by their own communities, and also the ones that are coming from our ethnic health organizations. It's very important that it should be, taking out from their own communities, so that while working with these undocumented migrants, it helped them to have this trust. So day by day, all these volunteers provides malaria services in the villages and work sites along the border crossing points, and some of those malaria hotspots and formal and informal border crossing points. Our volunteers are doing all the screening and testing, and also when there are cases of malaria, they are providing treatment and follow-up. They are also providing some kind of health education activities, especially in those areas where there are persistent malaria hotspots and high burden villages. So they are targeting most of these doing clinic mobile activities and reaching out to this high risk population, such as the one traditional farming communities, especially the forest goers and the seasonal workers, and also the internally displaced populations inside the IDP camps. Our volunteers are every day doing all this work, plus collecting all the necessary data, because once you have all these cases detected, you have to report it directly, and so that the proper treatment would be provided. And by doing so also, our staff, our field staffs are providing necessary supervision to these volunteers. So we also have this provision of some kits and malaria tools for them to go on an every day of their work. And in most of the cases also, we're doing regular consultations with our volunteers in order for us to really know what are those issues, what are those challenges that they are facing. And we have to work it within the team.
Yeah, I'm gonna ask you about specifically those challenges because you said challenges are ever so present. So what's the hardest, most frustrating part of doing this work? And then on the flip side, what signs do you see that the work is paying off?
Yeah, I hope Sri would agree with me on this one, but I guess the very critical, I have three most important challenges. I mean, there may be more, but the most critical one is that since we're working within like 5 countries and the mobility of these populations that we serve, the system and governance within each country is really challenging, especially if you work with cross-border activities. And there's a lot of tedious, follow-ups in terms of what activities that are only allowed in one particular country, but not in the other country. And especially that we are dealing with migrants that also have some kind of security implications. And that's, getting feedback on time is also a challenge. It's quite slow. And given also this context in the region, there are countries with difference in the diagnostic policies. So it's another challenge. And this is where actually all this resistance coming in. And also the most important challenges that we are facing up to now, we are still doing all this actions to improve this is the availability of the sufficient data or for information and planning for intervention. Basically, we need some kind of evidence-based data for advocacy purposes, yet the availability always hinders us with this process. However, if you talk about the positive signs, we are looking forward to the positive signs despite all these challenges. We can see now, with all these efforts, we can see now a more engaged community and partners. And also, as you can see, and you can hear from us since the beginning, with the strong political commitment in each of the countries, especially in those targets in achieving elimination goals and targets.
Thank you. I saw Shri nodding his head, so I think he agrees for the most part. Shri, we'll let you talk right now about the Alight programs that you're actually implementing in Thailand and Myanmar. You're also working in Cambodia, Laos, Vietnam to coordinate all the partners working on malaria. So, this kind of goes to Rachel's point about coordination, but why is it so important to have this coordinating agency?
If we see our malaria map in the region, is shrinking along the border area, remote area, and the forest area. So those areas, as I mentioned earlier, has very poor infrastructure to address people's health need, where there are some structure, but we need better coordination and communication to make our people available those services, but at the same time, they need to know what the services are available and where the services are available. And we Alight team and our partner in other countries where we don't have presence are working in coordinating with the communities and the government at the local level and national level. So another, as PP earlier said, if Thailand, only Thailand can eliminate if its neighbor country eliminates malaria, because we already discussed a lot about the open border, how people keeps moving. And then, those are risk vulnerable people. So for that, one country need to understand where the malaria hotspot are on the neighboring side. So that also very important. And as I said, is malaria is going down, and health system focus will be more to address other health issues and they will, at some point, donor will stop funding because numbers are showing progress. So no, this is also to prepare countries' health system at the community level to address people's health need, not just malaria, but also other common diseases in the community. And, having coordination effort helps resolving issues and challenges in timely manner. Sometimes malaria hotspots keep moving. Sometimes we see outbreak in one area and then we address that and it pops in another area. So if we want to control that and completely eliminate that hotspot, we need to respond on time, and that's only possible once if we have better communication channel and coordination for that. And marginalized community needs support in advocacy for access to malaria and overall basic health services. We are being their voice. As I said, we are doing advocacy. So we are frequently working with the partner, reaching out to community, listening to them, what are their needs, and then making sure their needs are addressed in the national policy, and that is translated into the program design when it comes to the funding proposal development. So that's how we are connecting community up to the policy level. And this just getting onto your point, and this is just to summarize what I said, getting data and evidence for advocacy and timely response is possible if we have coordination mechanism with the related stakeholder and partners, and which, since we started the civil society platform, which is now Alight is managing, we have seen greater progress in coordination among the civil society organization and also with the national government and the donors.
Yeah. Well, and you are kind of touching on it, but how are you guys, your team, and what are they doing to get everyone kind of moving and implementing in sync?
So through the project I'm managing, there are different activities. Rachel has explained about the detail how we are doing at the field level, but the project I'm managing, we create a network of civil society organizations and communities. So it's a common platform we created where people have open access and opportunity to express their need, challenges, and also share the best practices. So we organize national consultation, community consultation. We also bring all the stakeholders, including donor, at the regional level discussion, which we organize at least 2-3 times per year, regional consultation. We provide training to our partner, and those training are based on the needs they express. Kind of, for example, we organize survey. What are your needs? What do you want to be trained? So based on that, we identify need and we reach out to our partner within the network who has that expertise. So we don't keep lots of financial burden to our donor, and we train our partner. And we also sometimes we produce tools to support our partners' work, and also share other partners develop tool so they can use those tools in their day-to-day work. And the very highlighted work now we have started is creating community network. For example, we go down to the community at the district level. We bring village health volunteer, head of the community. We bring some of the government health officers in the one platform, and let them discuss the issue and challenges with that opportunity they don't have option. And then that network, that voice comes up to the national level, and that's how national level people, when they sit in the policy discussion, they know what exactly people's needs are. And then, and time to time, we provide opportunity for our partner and their staff to join malaria event at the national level, regional and global level. And there was first World Malaria Congress in Melbourne, and we were able to bring 5 countries representatives first time in this whole malaria implementation of our Alight history in the Southeast Asia. and they were able to share all the best work and best practices from their project to the world.
Shri, when you talk about the work that you do, I can feel your passion. I can also feel it from Fifi and Rachel, but I'm going to ask you this question, Shri. How does it feel to be leading so many others in achieving such a big and really important goal?
No, this when I heard this Changemaker word, when I start working with Alight, that's all I can say. One word: we are being real change maker, and we can see the support we are giving that is being very helpful, and our partner feels very useful to be connected with us. So at least being part of that, or being a small part of that change maker, makes gives you lots of encouragement to keep doing what you are doing.
I love that. Changemaker Shri to Changemaker Fifi. We'll let you have the last word. What has your team, Shri or Rachel, not told us that we should all know, and what should everyone go away knowing today?
Well, thanks, Gia. So what I would say in terms of the malaria work that we are doing in this region, mostly reinforced by our volunteers. So along with our dedicated staff. So they are, I usually call them as our mosquito team, because they're like mosquito buzzing around into the locations where nobody wants to go with their noise, bzz, all those things, and then giving the information how to prevent and how to do this about malaria thing. So yeah, so that's the main force. We have about 1,850 volunteers in Myanmar and Thailand that reach around almost 600,000 populations in 2 countries. And our partners in the other 3 countries, about 9,000 population. So yeah, I can just repeat what I always say to everybody, and then now I'm telling it again. So we can reach this elimination stage. It's possible, it's absolutely possible to stop the drug-resistant malaria. And us, Alight, is working on it, and having you all here and having you, Gia, also listening to what the team does is already confirming that we should be able and we could do this together. So thank you.
Thank you, Fifi. I really appreciate all of your expertise from your team, Rachel and Shri. We've got a couple minutes, so we're going to do some Q&A, and I've got a first question, and one of you can chime in if you feel this is appropriate for you to answer. But the first question is, can you say more about the work being done in Cambodia? One of the guests has worked with one of you has worked with the Tonle Sap in Cambodia.
Are you asking the person who sent the chat message?
No, I'm asking Rachel, Fifi, or Shri.
Oh, okay. All right. Thank you. Yeah, I had the question because as I said in my message, I am now working with the Lake Clinic. We're sending residents there and volunteers and so forth, and they do great work. So I would really love to hear more about what you're doing, what your program is like in Cambodia, and who you're working with. So thank you.
Thank you, Fern. So Fifi, Rachel, Shri, does anyone want to take that?
I will take it. Well, thank you for the questions. To be honest, I don't know on that time, because I was like in 1979 to 1999 what we were doing in Cambodia. So, but what I understand that we are doing this medical health and provided health services in the camps, and then we were stopped, and then we focusing more into the Thai Myanmar side. So I'm so sorry that I don't give you all the information, but that's pretty much what I can tell you instead of I'm making it up. So that's my answer. Thank
you, Fifi. Let's get to another question really quickly. How are you building capacity? So when Alight and visiting health workers leave, villages can maintain what you've worked so hard to achieve. Rachel or Shri, any of you want to answer that one?
Rachel, you want to go first?
can go for Sri.
Well, there are a lot of activities at the community, so that tailored to the capacity strengthening activities are tailored to the specific activity we have. For example, the greater part of non-government organizations are taking is educating community, providing malaria prevention education, and also sharing right information and message about how to seek treatment and introducing them what are the sign and symptom of malaria. So this one part, but the other part of capacity strengthening is now, when malaria goes down, people are more focused on data and analyzing that because they can hit the nail. So we are now trying to teach our frontline worker how to read those data. What does that mean to them? Because now when you see number, sometimes it doesn't tell you, but if you visualize those numbers, that gives lots of information. So we are focusing on data analysis, providing training on how to do social behavior communication at the field level. And also, larger part, not in all 5 countries, but Myanmar is doing actively this community-based testing and treatment, and those non-government organizations volunteer that Fifi mentioned earlier we have in Myanmar, and workers are allowed to do test and treatment. And that's how we able to decrease malaria case, because we can respond in the village. But unlike Myanmar, there are a few other countries, policy barrier, only medical personnel can do those activities. So we provide training and tools to those who can do test and treatment.
Thank you. Rachel, I'm going to let you weigh in before I toss it back over to Jeremy. Just how are you all building capacity there?
Yeah, just really to add up to what Sri was mentioning, we're thinking of going beyond malaria. So actually, again, I have to mention and I have to give favor to Myanmar, because it's actually Myanmar who go beyond malaria and providing all this capacity building to our volunteers, Malaria Plus. So they call their volunteers as integrated community malaria workers, but actually it's not. It's just a front of malaria, but we're given some kind of training, be it like other diseases, that for them to really respond to whatever like services that the community needs. So in both Myanmar and Thailand, all these activities are really geared towards behavioral change communication, and most of our activities. Good thing about other countries, because they can go beyond that level of that component of BCC. But like I said, there are limitations on each of the countries, and we have to really take favor on whatever, like the Myanmar that's so open, giving all this open training to all the volunteers, unlike other countries.
Rachel, Shri, Fifi, thank you. I'm going to just end this by just reading some comments. There are people saying that your compassion, tenacity, so evident, such inspiring dedication and passion, amazing work. Thank you so much for all of you for the work that you're putting in and day out to eliminate malaria. I want to end with Fifi's words, just saying, of course, why not? Jeremy?
Yeah, those are amazing words to lead us into the end. So Gia, thank you so much for leading us through such a powerful and impactful story about the work that Rachel, Shri, Fifi, their colleagues, and our customers are doing. And for those of you who saw in the chat, this work stands on the shoulders of the incredible work started decades ago by Barb, Connie, and many others. So we really thank you all today too. And we've actually, the story that they told today, about how change is possible is so inspiring. And we've actually gotten a couple of questions about how other folks can support this critical work and actually what it would go for. So first, how you can support the work, we're actually going to put a code up on the screen, and you can actually scan it with your phone's camera. It's right there. And you can just scan it with your phone's camera, or you can actually visit the website that is actually on the screen, and you can find out how you can support. In the second part of those questions are actually, what does it go for? You know, what does your money or your donation go for? And the short answer is a lot. You know, any gift, every gift in any amount actually will make a difference. Mosquito nets don't cost very much money. It can go to malaria medication, and it can actually go to basic supplies that support the thousands of community volunteers that Fifi and her team actually talked about as well. So that's up on the screen. Please shoot us over any questions if you have any if you have any other questions about how you can support our work here. So as we close today, I just want to give a reminder that the last session in this session of the Lights Workshare series actually happens at 10 a.m. Central Time, 11 Eastern Time. And we're going to actually be joined by a Light Safe Ride team who've been doing work to enlist an army of motorcycle drivers in the fight to stop gender-based violence and abuse in Uganda. It's a really interesting and exciting program, and we are actually very excited that we're going to be joined as the moderator for next week's discussion by Gia's morning show partner, Kaya Edwards. So we're actually really looking forward to that. She's going to lead the discussion. So one other plug for next week. It's the last one in this series. Our workshares are not going to be back for a little bit of time. So join us next week as we conclude our workshare series. So to close, same way we started, everyone who can is invited to jump off of mute and jump onto their cameras and say goodbye. Thank you to everybody.
Bye.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Bye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you. Nice talk.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Mhm.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.